It is often said that today we understand more than 10 years ago, and much more than a century ago. In theory, that should mean we're geniuses compared to people from the distant past, but that's not the case. If we were, we could solve all the ancient mysteries that you will see in this video. Number 1. A mushroom picker in Trista, Slovakia, was doing his job in late 2017 when he found some objects on the ground that were definitely not mushrooms. After some digging, he found himself looking at 2 perfectly preserved Bronze Age battle helmets, along with cheek and arm guards that presumably belonged to the same 2 warriors who wore those helmets. Very few helmets of this design have been discovered in Europe before, so historians are still not sure who designed or wore them. The most likely candidates are the field and Holit cultures, but there is not enough solid evidence yet to prove the connection. They don't even completely resemble the helmets they have been compared to. Most plumed helmets of this design are made from a single sheet of bronze, while these are made from 2 molded pieces of bronze connected by a central crest. What can be proven is that the headgear and armor are around 3,200 years old, making them an extremely lucky discovery for that mushroom picker. They are now on display at the Museum of Eastern Slovakia in Košice. Number 2. In 2018, a man was walking his dog in the Ora Mountains, near Kostela Hory in Chia, when the dog ran off, apparently distracted by something in the bush. When the owner reached for his dog, he discovered that he had unearthed a bronze sickle. That was enough to persuade the owner to join his pet in the dig, and by the time they were done, they had unearthed another 12 sickles, 7 bracelets, 3 axes, and 2 spears. He quickly headed to the Ora Mountains Museum in nearby Rnav and showed off his new collection to the experts, who were able to tell him that he had found a collection of treasures more than 3,000 years old. They are the only artifacts from this era found in the region since 1953, and their value should not be underestimated. The best guess of archaeologists at the museum is that they were buried as a tribute or sacrifice at the site of a fallen warrior, although confirming that would require the discovery of a tomb near the site. So far, that hasn't happened. Number 3. We head now to Denmark for a story about an amateur metal detectorist. This treasure was found in a very muddy field on the Danish island of No, near Horsens, over a 3-year period ending in September 2020. Most of the artifacts are jewelry ornaments, many of which are made of solid gold or include valuable pearls, pendants, a gold needle, beads, and gold fragments that were used as a form of currency in the Iron Age. Professional archaeologists say this treasure is about 1,500 years old. There's Refgard, a metal detectorist and dental assistant, found the first artifact in the spring of 2017 and then returned to the site several times in the following years to add to the collection. She now believes that she has found everything that was in the field. The gold comes from a time just before the beginning of the Viking Age in Denmark and features patterns and designs that historians have never seen before. Some of the patterns are similar to those found on gold objects from Rome at the time, so there may have been more contact between No and the Roman Empire than we currently know. Number 4. There was much excitement in Ordu, Turkey, on the Black Sea coast, in 2016, when an impressive 2,100-year-old marble statue appeared during excavation work in the area. This sculpture, which appears a little battered and discolored from its long burial, is a representation of Cybele, the ancient Phrygian mother goddess of the earth. She may only be 3.5 feet tall because it shows Cybele pregnant and sitting, but she weighs an impressive 450 pounds. The site of the discovery is the ancient Kuro-Kalisi fort, which is understood to have collapsed during an attack by Roman soldiers. In 2018, the original statue was accompanied by 2 more found in almost exactly the same location. This time, the statues were representations of Pan and Dionysus. Although the Romans may have been responsible for the fate of this fortress, they did not found it. It already existed at the time Homer wrote the Iliad, since he mentioned it by name. In fact, by attacking the city the way they did, the Romans may have been responsible for preserving these impressive statues and all the other archaeological wonders that have been found there. Number 5. While many of the ancient Mayan monuments and settlements in Mexico have been fully explored, the same cannot be said for those in Guatemala. However, archaeologists have spent the last few years trying to change that, and in the process have made astonishing discoveries, like this intricately decorated 1,500-year-old altar. It was found in a ruined Mayan temple, in an area almost completely hidden by the Guatemalan jungle, near La Corona. Excavating the altar from the roots of the trees that surrounded it, and moving it to Guatemala City was a painstaking process that took almost a full year. The limestone altar bears the image of King Chuk-Tukitchak, who was unknown to historians until then. He carried a double-headed snake in his hands, and the presence of the snake is probably linked to the Mayan dynasty of Canul, known as the Snake Kings. There are even hieroglyphics on the altar that give the precise date of May 12, 544 for its installation and dedication. Having found evidence of the existence of this forgotten king, archaeologists are now seeking additional historical context for his reign. Number 6. The Saqqara necropolis in Egypt is enormous and also one of the most active archaeological sites in the world, and is likely to remain so for many years. It is a work site, but parts of that place are open to the public, and in September 2018, Mehu's tomb joined that number for the first time. The delay between the discovery of the tomb and its opening to visitors was long. The tomb was found in 1940. Mehu was not a pharaoh, but a vizier who served in the court of Pharaoh Pepi of the 6th dynasty, who lived 4,300 years ago. As such, Mehu would have had great power and influence, which partly explains why his tomb is so grand. It is huge and in a prestigious position, not far from the Pyramid of Djoser. On the walls of the tomb are inscribed the many titles of Mehu. He was no less than 48, including chief of the juries and scribe of the royal documents. Furthermore, another inscription refers to Gentia Menchu, a deity who was a precursor of Osiris. This is the first evidence that Kentia Menchu was worshipped in the Nile Delta as well as in Upper Egypt. Number 7. Our ancestors had various funeral traditions that reflected their beliefs and social status. For example, in ancient Egypt, nobles were honored with elaborate tombs and sarcophagi, while peasants often received a simpler burial. In China, during the 1st century BC, those with great wealth could be buried in jade funerary robes, woven with gold and silver threads, thus showing their status even in death. These costumes, discovered by archaeologists in 1968, belonged to Prince Liang and Princess Daoan of the Han Dynasty. Their creation required years of work by skilled craftsmen, although jade, being a porous material, did not preserve the remains well within it. The suits. Number 8. Also known as Sheikh el-Beled, he was a scribe in Egypt during the time of the 4th and 5th dynasties, approximately 4,500 years ago. He would not be considered a particularly significant scribe if it were not for the exceptionally realistic statue of him, which is the best preserved ancient wooden statue in the world. We don't know much about Sheikh el-Beled's life, other than that he was a reader priest and also a scribe in the king's army. We don't even know what being a scribe in the king's army really entailed. Because of that, we will never know what he did to deserve such a fine statue when every other man of his rank had to make do with a fairly basic tomb. The tomb of Sheikh el-Beled was found in the Zahran necropolis by Auguste Mariette in the 19th century. The nickname, Sheikh el-Beled, meaning chief of the people, comes from the Egyptian excavators who worked for Mariette. They thought the statue was identical to the old man from the town where they came from. The statue of Sheikh el-Belad, which is made of sycamore wood and depicts the scribe walking with the help of a staff, is now in the Egyptian Museum in Cairo. Number 9. Hunger stones are a curious European invention that tend to be created only in times of trouble and tend to appear only in times of trouble as well. The most notable to have recently come to light was found in the Czech Republic on the banks of the Elbe River in late 2018. Water levels in the river were unusually low that year and revealed a message believed to have been carved into the stone by an innkeeper named FRM in 1904. The message is simple and reads, "If you can read me, cry." The implication is that if the river water has fallen to a level so low that the message can be read, a drought is inevitable. There was a terrible drought in 1904 in Prague. Fortunately, that of 2018 was not as pronounced. There were more businesses dependent on the river in the early 20th century, so when it dried up, so did their income. Modern Prague is better able to withstand such an event. All hunger stones serve the same basic purpose, and the oldest known example is in Din, which is also in the Czech Republic. It dates back to 1417, but no one knows who wrote it. Number 10. The Nazca Lines, a series of large ancient geoglyphs in the Nazca Desert in southern Peru, represent one of the most enigmatic and fascinating archaeological discoveries on our planet. In fact, you may recognize them as one of the most popular and mysterious places on Earth. The history of the Nazca Lines begins with their creation, which is estimated to have occurred around 500 BC to 500 AD for the Nazca people. These designs range from simple lines and geometric shapes to intricate representations of animals, plants, and imaginary beings. However, for centuries, these lines went largely unnoticed due to their enormous scale and remote location. The Nazca Lines, formed by massive figures of birds, were hidden until commercial pilots sighted them in the 20th century. In the 1940s, an American historian revealed its magnitude and astronomical, religious, or ritual precision. Although their purpose remains speculative, their preservation in the Nazca Desert for thousands of years adds intrigue and mystery to these geoglyphs. Number 11. In Mosul, Iraq, where scientists recently discovered a kingdom buried under a dam. Due to the drought that affected southern Iraq, a group of Kurdish and German archaeologists managed to resume excavations of an ancient city in Kemyan that had been submerged by the waters of the Mosul Dam reservoir. The find included a palace and several large buildings, and the researchers were able to reconstruct the city plan in a relatively short period of time. The team worked in a race against time, not knowing when the reservoir's waters would rise again. They discovered 5 ceramic vessels containing an archive of more than 100 cuneiform tablets dating to the Middle Assyrian period. Archaeologists also discovered rare red and blue wall paintings, leading to the belief that they were a common feature in palaces of the period. Additionally, several other large buildings were discovered in the sprawling city complex, including a massive fortification with a wall and towers, a multi-story monumental warehouse, and an industrial complex. But the kingdom came to an end under King Tushratta, during whose reign the Hittites destroyed his capital, Wasakani. Clay tablets have been found in modern paper-like envelopes that were used to enclose cuneiform tablets in the 2nd millennium BC. Researchers believe the cuneiform text belonged to a private archive in Middle Assyria and hope the discovery will provide important information about the history of the region. The excavated buildings were covered with plastic and gravel to protect the ruins, which are now flooded. Any other items hidden in the ruins must wait to be discovered later. The ancient city of Hydra in Saudi Arabia looks like Petra and may contain secrets of an ancient civilization. Number 12. In the spring of 2020, a very rare piece of an embryonic planet was found in a remote part of the Sahara Desert. What was so surprising about this discovery? This object was there even before the Earth was born. It's hard to imagine what the solar system looked like back then, but this meteorite is giving us some answers. Named ERG-CHEK-002 or EC-002, the meteorite was said to be made in the crust of an ancient protoplanet. If you've never heard of this before, a protoplanet is a small celestial body that acts as a building block for planets. And if you're wondering what this meteorite was called, we have an answer for that too. The EC-002 was named after the place where it landed, in the ERG-CHEK Dunes Sea in Algeria. When it was studied, scientists concluded that it was composed of several meteorites and weighed around 32 kilograms. A group of scientists found beautiful crystals and rocks that came from another planet due to erosion on Earth. The volcanic rock is the oldest lava ever found on Earth. Scientists want to learn about how the planets and crust formed in the early days of the solar system. The team of scientists led by Jean-Alex Barrett studied the rock and found that it was unlike anything they had seen before. They knew about the age of the meteorite from another research project and were interested in learning about its origin. They also discovered that the meteorite had some wear and tear and were able to determine when the protoplanet's crust solidified after the molten lava. Meteorite EC-002 is around 4.566 million years old, making it the oldest igneous rock found on Earth. It is 1.24 million years older than the next oldest igneous meteorite, NWA 1119. Additionally, its composition is unusual, being 58% silicon dioxide, indicating that its parent body had a crust made of andesite rock rather than the more common basalt. This suggests that the rock originated elsewhere. Scientists believe that andesitic crusts were common on early asteroids and protoplanets, but became extremely rare as billions of years passed due to incorporation into larger bodies or collisions with other rocks. Additionally, EC-002 is unique because no objects with similar characteristics have been found in the asteroid belt. Researchers believe that rock EC-002 was ejected from its parent body by a similar encounter shortly after the protoplanet's crust cooled and crystallized. This discovery has provided new details about the embryos of planets evolving before the existence of Earth. Ongoing studies on EC-002 will help scientists learn more about the composition of magma during a protoplanet's early activity, which in turn will allow them to deduce a lot about the formation of the crust. Number 13. Scientists found features beneath the surface of the Sahara Desert using radar because of how dry Egypt is. Canals were found buried 15 meters below the surface, and the Kasiba Oasis is located on this ancient waterway. The quarter-million-year-old water is 2 to 3 meters below the surface and is still used for agriculture. Scientists found fossil fish and Paleolithic settlements that coincide with a lake of around 109,000 square kilometers. They discovered that the Sahara Desert was a vast rainforest just 6,000 years ago. The Sahara Desert became one of the driest areas on Earth due to sudden changes in weather patterns. Two researchers, Robert Corte and William Bowes, studied how it rained during the Holocene period and compared it to another area with heavy tropical rainfall. They found links to the way it rained thousands of years ago, but can't figure out how the tropical rain belt moved so far north of the equator. Overgrazing and excessive deforestation by farmers also contributed to dryness in the area. Scientists also found evidence of prehistoric animals in the region, such as the world's largest marine crocodile called Macromosaurus rex, which measured more than 9 meters long and weighed around 3 tons. Studying climate changes in the Sahara can provide answers for the future and help deduce how the climate will change in other parts of the world. The study's author, Federico Fenti, found fossils of a massive crocodile in Tunisia. The fossils were found by Fenty and his team with the help of the National Geographic Society's Research and Exploration Committee. The crocodile's skull was buried deeply, but the rest of the body was there, making it a perfect treasure for people who want to study the past. Researchers found fish and turtle bones in the same area, suggesting it was probably a lagoon facing the ocean. Fenty believes that the Mrex, as the newly discovered crocodile is called, was capable of hunting in water and was probably a predator that waited to ambush its prey. Studies showed that the animal had a very strong bite that allowed it to crush its food, even something as hard as turtles. This discovery challenges what we thought we knew about our history, as the group of crocodiles to which Mrex belonged was thought to have become extinct about 150 million years ago. But this crocodile lived about 130 million years ago. This suggests that there was a large global extinction between the Jurassic and Cretaceous periods that killed many marine reptiles, but this group of animals apparently did not become extinct.